Imagine being hunted down, ambushed, and killed for no other reason than sharing a first and last name with a complete stranger. In October 2000, across the expanse of Houston, Texas, two women with the exact same name were murdered. They were killed within a 72-hour window. The anomaly began the morning of October 12th. 48-year-old Mary Lou Morris kissed her husband goodbye, backed her Chevy Lumina out of the driveway, and headed toward her job as a bank loan officer. She never arrived. Later that day, an ATV driver spotted smoke rising from a remote drainage ditch outside Houston. Mary Lou's car had been soaked in an accelerant and set on fire. The blaze burned so intensely that investigators had to use dental fragments to identify her remains. Sifting through the ash, forensic teams found something highly unusual. Several pieces of expensive diamond jewelry were melted, but untouched by whoever set the fire. However, Mary Lou's wedding ring was completely missing. A carjacker or mugger typically doesn't leave behind valuable diamonds to pry a single ring off a victim's finger, but a contract killer might. In the criminal underworld, a wedding ring is often taken from the scene as a trophy, physical proof to a client that a hit has been completed. The day after Mary Lou's body was discovered, as her family searched for a motive, the news desk at the Houston Chronicle received an anonymous phone call. The man on the line spoke a single sentence: "They got the wrong Mary Morris the first time." That single phone call shifted the entire investigation. It suggested Mary Lou's death was a lethal administrative error, and it meant the intended target was still out there, unaware they were being hunted. Exactly 3 days later, a frantic call came into a Houston 911 dispatch center. On the other end was a 39-year-old nurse practitioner named Mary McGinnis Morris. The dispatcher could hear a struggle, that Mary was killed before police could arrive. Investigators found her beaten and shot in the head inside her Dodge Intrepid. A handgun was resting on the passenger seat next to her, in an apparent attempt to stage the scene as a suicide. Physical evidence quickly dismantled that staging. Mary had bruising on her wrists, her clothing was torn, and the trajectory of the bullet didn't match his self-inflicted wound. The killer had placed the weapon, which belonged to Mary's husband, onto the seat after she was already dead. Then crime scene technicians noticed the same detail found at the first scene. Out of all the jewelry Mary McGinnis Morris was wearing that day, only her wedding ring had been removed. The matching missing rings and identical names confirmed a terrifying scenario. A contract killer had realized his initial mistake and returned to execute the original target. In 2000, a low-tier hitman hired with nothing more than a name would likely turn to the white pages, the massive printed phone directories delivered to every home in the city. Both women were in their 40s, with similar builds and short hair. They drove similar mid-sized sedans, making a directory error statistically likely. The two crime scenes tell very different stories. Mary Lou's murder was a clean, evidence-destroying inferno. Mary McGinnis's murder was a messy, physical struggle, ending with a poorly staged suicide. The evidence points to two very different operations. One, a calculated execution with full control over the environment. The other, a hurried correction by a killer forced to fix a catastrophic failure. If the hitman was just a tool, acting on a botched set of instructions, who actually ordered the hit on the second Mary Morris? Police immediately focused on her husband, Mike Morris. Mike had a significant financial incentive. He stood to collect a $700,000 life insurance policy upon Mary's death. There was an anomaly in his timeline. Mary was murdered shortly after her 5:47 p.m. call, yet records show Mike dialed her cell at 7:11 p.m. for 4 minutes. He claimed it rang unanswered, but telecommunications data proved the call was connected, meaning someone answered. Months later, another piece of circumstantial evidence surfaced. A family friend noticed Mike's daughter wearing the exact ring that had supposedly been stolen from Mary's body. Mike claimed he had simply found it around the house and forgot to inform the police. Hiring a hitman creates an insulation layer, protecting a mastermind from physical evidence at the scene. But that protection often fails when their post-crime behavior and digital footprints don't align with their official story. Detectives also investigated Dwayne Young, a coworker whose volatile behavior resulted in him being banned from Mary's medical clinic. Leading up to her death, Mary had discovered a terrifying threat written on Dwayne's desk calendar: death to her. Mary was so fearful of a stalker that she asked her husband to hide a handgun under the driver's seat of her car for protection. But when the killer cornered her, they found that same hidden gun and used it to end her life. Despite heavy circumstantial evidence pointing toward both the husband and the coworker, there is zero physical evidence tying either man to the unknown hitman. This remains the ultimate tragedy of the 72-hour glitch. One innocent woman was incinerated over a typographical error, another was hunted down in her own car, and a quarter of a century later, the person who paid for both of their murders remains free.